Hello folks and welcome to the Q&A for March 2020. Quick announcement before we get into the questions. Obviously when we did the whole channel relaunch thing back in January and changed the way things are done, one of those things, in addition to moving from a daily to a weekly vlog, was that I'd be doing scheduled monthly Q&As. That's what this is. You're still going to get this. However, I think with everything that's going on in the world at the moment, lots of people have lots of questions all the time. So you might have noticed over the last few days, I'm starting to do a few more live Q&As. Expect to see a lot more of that on the channel, at least for the next week, couple of weeks, maybe, while everything is changing so quickly and changing all the time. So there's not going to be any questions or answers in relation to that whole thing that's going on in this video. I'm sticking to the questions that were submitted before all this really kicked up into another gear. But if you do have pressing questions about that kind of thing, make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn your notifications on, follow me on Twitter, and in amongst all of those places, you should then find out when I'm live. Like I say, it's going to be fairly regular. I think there's probably a very good chance I'll go live on the channel for a bit this evening. I don't intend at this stage to leave those live streams on the channel as videos on demand because they're a little bit messy, they're a little bit disorganized, and there's going to be a lot of them. So I've got a playlist for unlisted live Q&As on the channel already. I'll stick that down in the description below. If you really want to watch them as videos on demand, you'll be able to find them in there. But really, they're just going to be a place for us to hang out every day or two and have a little bit of a chat. You can tell me what's on your mind. I can answer any questions on what we're getting up to, how we're coping with everything that's going on. And I think it's just nice to touch base and do this kind of thing a little more often when the whole world is falling apart around us. I know people were going to ask about that, so that's what's happening there. Keep an eye on all those places. You'll see when the live Q&As happen. But for now, we're going to get stuck into some completely different types of question. And question number one is from Alex Jones, who asks, how did Andy cope with the introduction of Lucy's boyfriend Owen? And likewise, how did Owen react to Andy? I'm trying to think back, but I think they met for the first time at Centre Parks. Is that right? Had they maybe met? I think they might have met once before then. I think Owen came over for dinner and we had a board games night and stuff. And I mean, Andy is always fine with people in so much as he's never going to be super friendly with anybody new, but then he's not super friendly with anybody he already knows who's not Anna. So he immediately just started treating Owen the same way he treats the rest of us. He acknowledges that he's there. He asks him for stuff if he needs it. And for most of the time, he just ignores that he's there, which is fine. Owen was just started straight in and never had any problems with him, has talked to him, just treats him like anyone treats their girlfriend's brother, I guess. So yeah, it was as you would expect it to be if Andy was neurotypical. If anything, maybe a little bit easier because there was no awkwardness, no resentfulness, no not liking each other, because Andy was just being Andy. Pixie4688 asks, how is Andy taking it that Andy is learning to be more independent? I know mums with children on the spectrum can struggle with it sometimes. We've seen some of the struggles Anna's had with this on videos over the last year or so. I remember one from when we went to the park and she just didn't want to let him climb on the climbing frame on his own because she was afraid he'd hurt himself. And I mean, she's got all of the normal fears that you would expect a parent to have as their kid starts to approach adulthood. I think it's only to be expected to be a little bit nervous, especially because independence is something Andy's probably always going to struggle with. I don't know if he'll ever be 100% completely independent, and we just have to work out what's the best version of independence for Andy. And Anna wants that as much as anybody. She wants him to live the life he wants to live and be happy, but it's at the same time it's hard to let go of little things like reading him his bedtime story because he likes to have his bedtime story read to him. So he still gets it because he still likes it. It's finding the right balance, and I don't think she's finding it any harder or any easier than any other mum does when their kid gets to the point when they're starting to become a human in their own right rather than just a child. Cue all of the children in the comments getting upset. You know what I mean, I hope. And if you don't, know that it wasn't mean. Kathy asks, you talked about moving for Anna's future job. How will that affect Andy, and how far can we move from Amy and Lucy? Andy will be completely fine with a move. He was completely fine when he and Anna moved over here from Nottingham, going back 8 years now. He had his his corner where all his stuff was in Anna's flat, and his stuff moved to a different house, and it was fine because all his stuff was still there. So as long as he has his corner with all his stuff, including the big pile of toys that he never touches but gets upset if they're not there, as long as he has his stuff in a corner, he'll be fine wherever we are. So Andy is not a problem from that side of things. Obviously, we will have to take into consideration things like schools and what other services might be available, things like respite and that kind of thing, and what facilities there are locally. That being said, the whole moving house thing is probably on hold for now while we wait and see what happens with everything that's currently going on in the world, because we can't move house if Anna hasn't got a job, and Anna can't get a job if nowhere's hiring because of all of the stuff that's going on. So everything's kind of up in the air at the moment. As far as the girls go, I think we can move anywhere that's a comfortable travelling distance for Amy on her own. So it needs to be somewhere that you can get to by train relatively easily and it not become a pain in the backside to do. So we wouldn't want to move to Edinburgh because that's too long a trip. But if we say we move to London, Amy could get on a train down to London and I could meet her at King's Cross, and yeah, it would be like a 45-minute trip. That would be fine. At the moment, the whole joint custody thing that we had when me and their mum first split up 10 years ago has kind of drifted more towards they're with her most of the time. They both kind of have decided to do that as they've got older. And Amy's only really here one night a week now. She comes here every week, Tuesday night. Don't know why it's Tuesday. It just kind of fell into being Tuesday. So Tuesday night every week, she comes over, spends the night, and then goes to school the next day. I've had the conversation with Amy about it. As far as we're concerned, coming here one night a week on a school night isn't that different to travelling to wherever we might live 2 weekends a month and doing the 2 nights back to back, and actually ending up spending more time together because we'll get the daytime as well if we do it that way. So as long as we're somewhere that's near enough for it to be possible to do that, whether it's me picking her up on a Friday night and dropping her back on a Sunday, or somewhere where she can comfortably travel on her own, then I don't see it being a problem. And Lucy barely sees me anyway because she's so busy with work and uni and stuff. So yeah, Lucy's an adult now. We don't have to live in the same place when you've got an adult kid. If Andy was not autistic, how do I think my career would be right now? I think right now my career would be exactly the same. I think it would have taken slightly longer to get here, but I think there is a little bit of misconception out there for some people that the only reason I do what I do is because of Andy, and that we need to make Andy videos to pay our bills and all that kind of stuff. So I'll emphasize again something that I emphasize quite regularly: of our total income from all of our different income streams, this channel, the only channel Andy appears on, makes up maybe 15 to 20% of our total income. The majority of my income comes from my gaming channel, but I also have income from streaming, from Patreon, from merchandise sales, from my book that I wrote. So all of that stuff is not related to Andy at all. So as soon as I got the YouTube bug, my plan was always, I would love to do this as a job one day. And in reality, I think everything that went on with Andy not going to school and me having to leave work probably moved that process forward a year. But I would imagine if Andy had been neurotypical, or even if Andy had been attending school and there hadn't been a pressing need to leave, I think I probably would have still left teaching just maybe a year later and just done the Football Manager stuff with a little bit of vlog here and there. And the vlog, this channel wouldn't have grown as much as it has. I acknowledge that. But at the same time, this channel is kind of irrelevant to the business side of things. This channel could go away tomorrow and we'd be fine. If the other channel went away tomorrow, we'd be ruined. So the discrepancy in how much I earn between the two of them is enormous. It's literally I probably earn 4 times as much from the gaming channel as I do from this one. So yeah, I'd have been a full-time YouTuber by now regardless, because it's what I wanted to do. It's what I enjoy doing. It's what I spend most, and I spend I spend my 50, 60 hours a week making my gaming videos and fit this stuff in around it. Thanks to the support as a channel member, Kevin Christopherou. Murray asks, what are our celebratory plans for 100,000 subs? There probably aren't going to be any because we're going to hit it any time now. And what can we really do? We can't go out anywhere. We can't do anything massive and grand. So I imagine I'll just say, thanks for getting us to 100,000 subscribers, folks. And then start aiming for 200,000. I don't know, what can we do really in the current climate? Holly asks, what are my thoughts on ABA therapy? This is something I get asked quite a lot, and I try not to get bogged down in the argument too often because I think there's, depending on where you are in the world, you're kind of conditioned to either think it's great or think it's awful. And I live in one of those places where we're conditioned to think it's awful. We mentioned, I mean, I hadn't really researched it very much because it's something that's just not available in the UK, or at least not in the part of the UK that I'm in. It's never been suggested, it's never been offered, it's never even been brought up by any professional. It just kind of doesn't exist here. But a few years ago, not really knowing anything about it, but seeing that some people have some success with it, I brought it up with our social worker, and her response was basically that as far as she's concerned, if we started doing it, it would be, if we started doing it off our own back, she'd consider it child abuse. So yeah, it's and I'm kind of a similar mindset. I still don't know it inside and out. From what I understand about it, it's basically forcing autistic people to pretend to not be autistic, even if it hurts to do so. And that sounds pretty awful to me. Why do they need to pretend not to be autistic? Can't they just be autistic? So yeah, it's not something we're ever likely to go down the route of. And like I say, I hold my hands up and say I don't know the ins and outs and everything about it because everything I ever read about it seems horrific. So I don't feel the need to explore it further because it just sounds awful. I wouldn't want to go through it. I wouldn't want to put Andy through it. And I question anybody who says they've had success with it, because to me, success isn't, look, our child seems less autistic now than they were before. Well, that's not success. That just means you've taught them how to mask part of who they are. And that's rubbish. Don't do that. Let them be who they are. I'm very much of the mindset of just let people be who they are and how they are, and try and fit the rest of the world around them. Don't try and cram them into their pre-allocated portion of the world. But I know it doesn't necessarily work like that in practice, but for me and my family, I can make it work like that, and will. What did I enjoy most and least about teaching? Do I miss it? And what do I think would help address the retention crisis in the profession? What did I enjoy most about it? The actual act of teaching, standing up and talking to people about something I'm passionate about and seeing them get passionate about it and enjoy doing it was fantastic. What did I enjoy least about it? Marking. I struggle with anything that I don't see a benefit to doing. Now, obviously, if someone does a piece of work, they need feedback on whether that piece of work was good or not and how it could be improved. I get that. What I don't get is having to do it in a pre-prescribed way because your school tells you to or Ofsted tell you to, and having to write. I went through 4 or 5 different stupid marking systems throughout my time teaching, and I was only teaching for 5 years, but just silly things like, oh, well, make sure you tell them 2 positives and 1 negative, or you can't say negative, it's an improvement. Marking a purple pen rather than a red pen. Red pen's scary. Just always end on a positive point. Well, what if the work's rubbish? Yeah, I don't know, just the silly little rules and just the sheer volume of marking that can be generated. It's unmanageable to the point where I think if you've got... I was lucky enough to never work on a full teaching timetable because I went straight from being a newly qualified teacher to I forget what they even call it, a member, like middle leadership. I was an NQT, a newly qualified teacher. Before the end of that year, I got promoted to second in department in the school I was in. And then within a couple of years, I was a head of department with other responsibilities and things as well. So I never had a full teaching timetable. But I think a full teaching timetable, you basically teach for 4.5 days a week and have half a day a week to do all of your planning and marking, which just doesn't work. You can't mark 4.5 days worth of work in half a day and be expected to plan your lessons for next week. So the profession is built around overworking people. So I think in order to improve the retention problem, you either need to separate teaching from marking. So you have people who just teach and people who just mark, and you make that one job, split that into a job for two people, and you have each teacher has an admin person who does all their stupid paperwork for them. Or in reality, you just have teachers on more realistic timetables. If you've got, I would say, in an ideal world, you'd have a 50-50 split. So half of your week you spend actually in a classroom teaching, and the other half you have to plan and prepare and mark and moderate and just do all the other stuff that at the moment a lot of teachers do at the weekends or take home and do in the evenings. And yeah, I think it's the hourly rate of being a teacher is shocking. So I am very impressed by anybody. You must really, really, really love it. And I never did. I was never desperate to be a teacher. I never saw it as my true vocation in life. It was just a job. It was a job I enjoyed, but it was just a job. And I think anyone who goes into it as a job will struggle to be in it long term, because they really do expect you to work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for really not a lot of money. I think the starting salary for a teacher is about £21,000, which when you split that down into the hours that they work is probably, you'd probably earn more working in the corner shop. Does Andy's school have a room where they take him to calm down if he's stressed or having a meltdown? They have a number of safe spaces throughout the school, like little side rooms. Some of them have nice tents in that zip up and he can chill out in there. So yeah, there's places where you can go and chill out and calm down. Will I be filming Anna's graduation from university, and is there a way to send her a gift? I plan to film her graduation if it happens. As of right now, the rest of her time at university is all being done remotely, so she's not setting foot in the building again at this point. She'll be submitting all our work online. It'll all be written work that has to be submitted online. All lectures are now going to be over live streaming. So if her graduation happens, then yes, I'll film it. But as awful as it might be after 3 years of hard work for Anna, it might just be they stick a certificate in the post for her. If everything is still going wrong at that point. Is there a way to send her a gift? There isn't. We did have a PO box, but we cancelled it because we didn't really feel comfortable taking gifts and things anymore. I would suggest a nice thing to do for Anna, if you were looking to send her a gift, maybe make a donation to charity in her name and send her a tweet, or let her know in a comment that you've done it. That might be quite nice. If you want to support the National Autistic Society, that would be lovely. They're our favourite charity. But any charity really, just make a donation to charity and do it in Anna's name, and that's a lovely gift for her. How are you monitoring Andy's weight gain? I don't mean this offensively, I just heard some people on the spectrum struggle to understand when they're full, and with Andy's recently growing diet, I was wondering if you had any tips to monitor an autistic teenager's weight, i.e. teaching them about exercise, etc. At the moment, the monitoring is he gets weighed at school once a week. That weight, the reason it's done there is because they've got a fancy scale that is super accurate, apparently. Believe it or not, this was a point on an agenda of a meeting that we had with all the professionals. Where should he be weighed? Because for a while we were all weighing him, so we'd weigh him on our scales, and obviously that would then give a different weight to school and to his respite and to when he went to see the dietitian. So we had to agree on who would weigh him, and I don't think they wanted us doing it because they wanted a professional doing it, and the one he sees most often is school. So we agreed he'd get weighed at school, so he gets weighed at school once a week. That weight then gets distributed amongst everybody concerned, and at the moment everybody is happy. His weight's still going up and we're all happy with that. So until people stop being happy, there's really nothing for us to monitor or worry about. He does eat a lot of food, but he is a 15-year-old boy. Every 15-year-old boy eats a lot of food. When I was his age, I was doing all of the sports, and I was playing rugby and football and all sorts of stuff, and I probably ate more than he, well, no, not probably, I definitely ate more than he does. People go, oh, 6 slices of toast for breakfast, that's a lot of food. I would have that and a massive bowl of cereal probably, and then snack when I got to school. So I think, yeah, I'm a fat guy now, but I wasn't fat then. So I think a lot of the weight gain is helping. It's making him taller. He's so much taller than he was before. And, you know, if he starts to get fat, if people start to worry that he's getting overweight, then we'll figure what to do from there. But at the moment, I think he's just hungry because he's a 15-year-old boy, and 15-year-old boys are always hungry. So at the moment, we're seeing it as a good thing. Have you ever considered quitting YouTube to pursue a different career after quitting teaching? I've never considered quitting YouTube. That's not to say I'll do it forever, because I doubt it will be around forever, but I absolutely love it. It's my dream job. I love doing it, and I would love to be able to do it every day for the rest of my life. And I mean do it every day for the rest of my life. I don't mean have it as my job for the rest of my life. I mean I am willing to sit here right now and say I'm happy to commit to making YouTube videos every Christmas day through every day of every holiday. Literally every single day for the rest of my life, I am happy to make YouTube videos because I love doing it. I don't think I would enjoy anything else as much as I enjoy this. And for as long as I'm able to do it and call it my job, I will continue to do it because it is amazing. If it all went away tomorrow, which, you know, there's a chance it might, because who knows what's going to happen. So if it got to the point where I couldn't work doing this anymore, I probably would go back to teaching, because if they'd have me, after all the things I've said about it online over the years, but it's the thing I could get paid most to do with my skill set. So if money got desperate, I'd go back and teach for a few years. But again, and this might come back and bite me in a job interview at some point, it would be for a few years until I found something more fun to do again, because teaching, I'm good at it and I can get paid well to do it, but I never loved it. It was never, like I say, I didn't ever consider it a vocation. It was a well-paid job that I enjoyed doing, but I was always looking for something else. My entire teaching career, I was either writing books or doing podcasts or making YouTube videos or some combination of all three. And it was always with a view to one day getting to do something creative as my job. So this is what I do now. This is what I always want to do. Not necessarily always YouTube, but always something creative. Whether it's making videos, whether it's writing, whether it's, I don't know, whatever it might be, something creative. That has to be what I do long term for my own sanity. How come you once said no to all shout-outs, but now you do them every video? Let's have a shout-out now. Thanks for the support as a channel member, Alex SBTL Photos. The reason we do it is because we now have channel memberships, and people support us and allow us to worry less about things like what's going on at the moment, because we have income that's not dependent on YouTube advertising, and it's not constantly up and down. When I launched channel memberships, I showed you the graph. The income from YouTube is ridiculous, and having channel memberships and Patreon and things like that just helps level that out a little bit. And because of that, it's one of the things that I wanted to offer in return. People have been asking for shout outs for a long time. If I just said, yeah, everybody could have shout outs, every video becomes just doing shout outs or disappointing a lot of people. This way, if people want to go the extra step to help support us and allow me to carry on living this dream that I'm talking about, I'll reward them by saying thank you in a video. So that's why we do it. And that's why we'll continue to do it. If you could go back to uni to learn anything, what would you choose to learn? Probably this, video editing. I'd go to film school, because anything and everything I know about making video is stuff that I've figured out for myself or learned from watching tutorials on YouTube or Skillshare or wherever it might be. I've never had any kind of teaching in how to use a camera. In the comment section, yeah, we could tell, Kev, how to use Premiere Pro, how to, even silly little things like how to frame a shot properly. It's all stuff that I've had to kind of figure out for myself. So I would love to really learn filmmaking. I would love to be able to make Peter McKinnon style cinematic videos, because I look at them and they are so cool, but I couldn't even begin to figure out how to do them. I hear people talking about, like, you hear, even going back to when Casey Neistat was daily vlogging, and as someone who daily vlogged as well, you'd hear him talk about spending 6-7 hours editing his vlogs together, and I would look at that and think, how does it take 6 or 7 hours to edit a vlog together? Because for me, editing a vlog together is largely cutting out the ums and ers and then putting the sequence of clips in order, and maybe a little bit of colour grading if I want to be fancy, or maybe tidy the audio a little bit if I want to be fancy. It certainly doesn't take 6 or 7 hours, and it certainly doesn't involve rough cuts and all this. And then, we've got 2 more, we've got to run through and do 3 more edits before it's the final edit. And I have no idea what they're talking about. To me, I edit a video, I do it all in chronological order, and then it's done. And I wish I knew what more I could do to make my videos better. So yeah, film school would be awesome. And that brings me to the end of the list of questions that I saved on my phone. So I guess that's the end of the Q&A. Like I said at the start, if you've got more burning questions that you want to ask, keep an eye out for the live Q&As that are going to be appearing on the channel very frequently while all this nonsense worldwide is going on. I think it's important that we all stay in touch with each other. As I've mentioned a few times on the internet, obviously I've been working from home for years. I get isolation because I sit in my garage on my own all day, and there are days at a time where the only person I actually talk to in real life would be Anna or Andy or the girls. So I get it. And I understand how hard it is to adjust to. And if I can help that for people by giving you somewhere to come and have a chat with me on here through the comments section in the chat, or on social media, then I want to do that. And also it helps me get things off my chest. If you watched the live stream that I put out last night, the first 10 minutes of it was just me getting stuff off my chest that I was worrying about that day. And then we all had a nice chat about it all. So I think it's helpful for all of us, and there'll be a lot more of them. So keep an eye out for those. Otherwise, if you have enjoyed this video, please make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on there for me. Subscribe to the channel for the weekly vlog and all the other good stuff as well. And thank you very much for watching.